Good morning, everyone. I, I want to present on the topic of segmentation, but honestly, this is probably not going to go the full 20 minutes unless you have a bunch of questions, so you'll probably get out of here a little bit early. So segmentation is the grouping of names within your email list or direct mail list by commonalities. And commonalities can be all sorts of things. It could be everyone in the segment is interested in baseball, or everyone in the segment has downloaded your demo and is ready to speak with a salesperson, or everyone in the list attended the last trade show, or maybe even everyone in the list lives in Colorado. A segment can be anything that is important to your business that enables you to create more relevant marketing. And what this means is that you're going to be creating more emails or more direct mails, but they'll all be similar except that the messaging or perhaps even the images will be relevant to that segment. So despite the fact that we marketers all know we have different members in our list, 80% of us marketers send the same content to the entire list. We don't use segmentation at all. So that means even though we know that everyone in our list or everyone in a particular group is from California, we're not using images that the Californians can relate to. We're using perhaps snowy mountains from Denver. But we do that in spite of the fact that Experian, who tracks this sort of thing, tells us that targeted emails have a 40% higher open rate. And every marketer is concerned about their open rate. So getting 40% simply by making that message more relevant, even slightly more relevant, is a big deal. And Marketing Sherpa says that after the open, you get 50% more clicks because of a targeted email or direct mail. So segmentation becomes this really powerful, versatile tool, and it's really underutilized. But I think the reason that it's most underutilized is that there's some overhead in developing campaigns or developing rules that create segments. So if you're using something like Constant Contact or iContact or some of the Tier 3 email automation systems, you might actually have to do some manual work. Things like create another field and actually type in that field tags or keywords that would help you to create small segments. Or maybe you export your list, you manipulate it in Excel, and then import it into small segments. If you're in marketing automation, something more like SharpSpring or Acton, Pardot, all those, you could create dynamic lists as people interact with your campaigns, and that will help you to segment on the fly. But no matter how your segments get built, the segmentation of your list makes marketing simpler and more effective. So some ideas for profiling your audience are every time you send an email, especially emails about inbound content where they're going to fill out a form because the content is gated, each form could present some questions, and those questions are tied to the segments. Perhaps you're asking gender or where do you live. So to date, maybe you've had forms that asked for the first name, the last name, and the email address. And because you're not really using data beyond that, you found no reason to include additional fields in your form. And there is a point of no return. If you have too many fields in your form, you get a high abandonment rate. If you have too few, you're not garnering information that you could be using for segmentation. So you have to balance that. One way to balance it is to use progressive profiling. And this is a way of having forms with many fields, but only presenting fields to a new visitor that they've not already completed. So perhaps you have first name, last name, company name, age, gender, email address, but for this particular lead, you do already have their gender. So in a progressive form, they're only going to get the additional field of age because the other fields have been completed. So this will lower abandonment rates even when you have additional fields. The other thing you can do is A/B test and watch as people interact with your email, and as interactions occur, like visiting particular landing pages, you are learning something about them that could be used as a segment. Another way would be to include two different offers in the same email. So you send an email out for save 50% on dog food and save 50% on cat food, And depending on which of those links they click, you know something about them that allows you to put them in an appropriate segment, or what we call marketing buckets. Subsequent emails then recognize that you have this information. So now it says, hey Cindy, we hope that your dogs are enjoying the new Blue Buffalo dog food that you bought. Did you know we have leashes on sale? And because that message is more relevant to exactly my situation, I'm A, more likely to open, and B, more likely to click. And those are two good things. So even though you can get a lot of different kinds of segments, you need to choose which will be the most active or the most profitable, and omit the inactive. But there is an argument for keeping the inactive in a campaign like this, because we do know that you will get more opens and clicks. And so more opens and clicks, or a more relevant message, is more likely to reactivate someone who's inactive. So omit the inactive is not always a rule, but sometimes it is. And then you're going to develop campaigns to specifically re-engage those that are the most active and are the most profitable, or those who hold the most promise. So segmentation makes money through higher conversions, and the higher conversions came because you had more opens, more clicks, and more relevant offers. So I have 6 steps to segmenting my list, and I'm sure that everyone has their own process, but if you're watching this webcast, you clearly have questions about how you would determine segmentation. So here's what I do. I first set up a quantifiable and measurable goal for my campaign. It's not enough to say, I want more subscribers. It's, I want 1,000 more subscribers, and I want to do it by June 30th. Or in this case, I want to sell 500 sandwiches to new customers by 5 p.m. So the new is very important. I have a list, and in that list are past customers and people who've never bought from us, so they would be new. So my approach to segmenting for my sandwich offer would be to divide my list into those who've made a purchase before and those who have not. And I will send this message to those who have not, because my quantifiable goal is to sell 500 sandwiches to those who've not purchased before. But your segment, based on what your business model is, can be all sorts of things. It can be behavior or demographics, where they are in the sales funnel, how they've interacted with you in the past. There's really no limit to what you can use as a segmentation guideline. So once you've made it this far, now you want to identify, of the segments you're able to create, which are the most valuable segments, those that present the most promise or the greatest opportunities. And sometimes this will be the person who buys the most in one order, but maybe it's the person who buys the most over a span of time. So step 4, narrow this down to only segments that contain enough names to gain measurable data or actionable data. So even though you're able to create segments with 3 really high dollar candidates in it, is it really worth it to create a very specific targeted message for those 3 people? You have to be able to balance that. The other thing is that as marketers, we always need to get smarter. So every campaign should have the goal, not necessarily a measurable goal, but a goal of making us smarter about who's in our list and why they buy from us. If your segment is too small, you're not garnering enough information to make assumptions about what's going on. So step 5 is, now you want to create the targeted message that is specifically designed to engage each of the list segments you've created. So you're not limited to creating one segment. You might have 50 segments, but in those 50 segments, you also have 50 pieces of artwork. And the 50 pieces of artwork are designed to target the specific audience. The last thing you want to do is track and measure results. And we track in a lot of different applications. We track Google Analytics and our URL shortener, which is bit.ly. We use a QR code tracking system. We have our email automation tracking system. So we have tons of different sources of analytics, but just because we can track all that information doesn't mean that it's all relevant to us. What we need to do is go through all the analytics we can track and grab just the information that's meaningful to this particular campaign. So some ideas for segmentation, and depending on your business, are age and gender, marital status. Have they been to your site? Did they download a demo? Did they go to YouTube? Are they sharing you in social networks? All of these things can be used for segmentation and for crafting a specific message. Segment or data comes into two broad categories. You have explicit data and implicit data, and both of them can be used or combined for creating list segments. Explicit data are company size, industry, title, where on the planet they live, all those sorts of things, whereas implicit is how they've interacted with your brand in the past, or activity that you know they've had because it's been attached by a different vendor. So maybe they downloaded a resource or they watched the video. Those are implicit data. So another idea would be to identify people in your list who are return customers and those that present the highest value order. These two groups are very often more valuable over time, and they warrant the additional overhead of creating custom messaging and providing handholding. So what you want to do is weigh these benefits to the cost. Yes, you will have a cost involved in creating custom messaging for your segments, but combining custom messaging with personalization, you can actually generate very targeted messaging with lower overhead. But there is a cost. There will always be a cost, and you have to make sure that you have a list of size that is worthy of the cost you'll have. So in summary, segmentation drives higher engagement and conversions because the message is more relevant. And the greatly improved message relevance increases opens, increases clicks. It also gives you a better platform for A/B and multivariate testing approaches. But no matter what you do, you have to weigh the costs against the benefits, and you have to ensure that your segments have enough names to return that data that you should be tracking in order to become smarter for future campaigns. Targeted messaging is the way to achieve higher click-through and sales rates.